welcome back. I had a comment in the CLA basic video from Micah who asked about taking a Pultec, the Pultec, setting it to 60 hertz, boosting and cutting at 10, both at the same time. So this is a classic EQ that we've all heard, we've probably used. We just don't quite know exactly what's going on in the background, or we do, but it's not maybe what you think is going on. So let's do the setting real quick for what Micah was asking for. So we have it set to 60 hertz. We're going to do a full boost at 10, and we're going to do a full attenuate right there. So you see, we're actually cutting about 550, and then there's your boost down there. So at 60 hertz, you actually at a plus 14 or so. One thing I do want to note here is as soon as I put this plug-in in, it actually gives you boost. That's on the blue line. What's on the red line is actually the UAD Pultec. So let's just do one at a time. I'm going to just show you the waves. Turn the red one off. And we're going to go through here. So if we set it to 100 hertz and we do a boost, it's pretty wide. You're getting stuff all the way up. Actually, let me try to pull this down just a little bit. If I can match the level at the high frequency, so you can see better where boost is happening. I mean, it's already up here, 1.5K. We're doing a boost. Let's take that, go crazy with it, full up. Yep, really wide. Okay. Let's do this. Let's actually go down to 20 hertz. We're going to go modest. We're going to go at 5. Is it 20 hertz? There's 30. There's 60. And there's 100 again. Let's go back to 20 hertz and go full boost. That's probably more what you were expecting to see from the 60 hertz. There's a 30. There's 60. Now, along with all this, let's start back at 20 hertz and we're going to do an attenuation. Shelf, all right? Tell you what, let's just go to 8. There's a 30. You see it starts to creep up higher and higher. And if you're doing an 8 attenuation at 100, look at that. You pretty much cut out all the lows, all the low mids. You're starting to work your way into the mid-range of the vocals. If we go full cut, yeah, pretty drastic. Okay, let's get rid of that. Let's look at the mid-range here. Do a boost. Something to note. Does it move? It doesn't move. This plugin doesn't have a little pre-resonance going on. So let's just boost this to 5. 4.9. There's an even 5. There's a 16. Yeah, that looks about right. There's 12. There's a 5. That's pretty much what we'd expect to see. So let's go back to 4K here. Let's widen this. See how wide that can actually go. So if I go full boost, at 5K, there's 4K, there's 3K. Words are hard. You see, as I start to narrow it, actually get some more boost out of it, some more resonance. As you go wider, you don't get quite as much gain out of it. All right, let's pull that back down. Let's look at our attenuation. That's at 20. There's attenuation at 10. Attenuation at 5. What happens here if I go like, I go to 5, and I start to boost up against that attenuation? Something like that. Same thing here. Start to boost at, let's say, 60 hertz, and it start to attenuate against the 60 hertz. Something like this. So your attenuation helps to increase the slope of that low end boost. Let me pull these out. Pull this out. Now we're back to just the low end. Let me just flatten everything. Boost at 60. Attenuate at 60. How about full attenuation at 60? Now let's boost against it. Let's go to 30. It's not boost quite as much. Tell you what, no boost, right? Starts to rise pretty early. If you start to boost and you want to isolate those frequencies, you're going to have to cut against it just a little bit. So this is pretty typical when you start to increase the Q on your, or tighten the Q on your shelves. You're going to have a little bit of resonance cut before and come up. Now, I want to show you something that you can't actually just take settings from one and move them to the other. So now we're looking at the UAD version in red. I'll reset the waves level. All right, everybody's back to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. We'll go 5 here. It's going to match the settings up. Okay. Now our settings are matched. One thing you can see right off the bat is the Waves Pultec actually has a little bit of phase shift up top. Maybe they're modeling a transformer, something like that. I'm not sure. Another thing to notice is they both add just a little bit of gain. Just even idling, nothing going on. Another thing to notice, the Waves version has 1.77 milliseconds of latency at 96K, while the UAD has 0.57, so it's quicker. Let's say what looks to be 5 on the UAD, 60 hertz, or sorry, 100 hertz, and let's go to what is 5. They're different. What happens when right now the UAD is at 5 and I start to push? I'm at 7, a little bit below 7. There's 7. There's a full 10. Okay, what about a full 10 on the waves? Let me shift this down for you a little bit. The waves boost a little bit more. Okay. Let's go to 4 and 4. Not the same. What about a 6 and a 6? Was I visually going to get it? Not the same. What happens? The UAD is a little bit hyped up, a little bit ramped up. So a 6 on the waves is actually about a 5 on the UAD. So a 3 on the UAD is maybe a 4 on the waves. Not quite. So one thing to consider here is waves, I'm assuming, took this one piece of hardware and modeled it, which over its service life maybe had components replaced, or maybe that's just the way it is. There's tolerances in the pots and everything. You cannot take the settings visually from one plugin and move it to the other. You're not going to quite match up. You're going to have to use your ear on this. So here is 2 on the waves. Yeah, on a little boost like that, you're not going to see too much of it. Tell you what, let's go to 60 hertz on both of them. Go to 6. What I think is a 6. Yeah, it's just hyped up. So the taper on that pot, on the low pot on the UAD is not quite as linear. It's more logarithmic than with the pot up top on the waves. There's the boost. Let's take a look at the attenuation. We're both at 60. Go to 4 on waves. I go to 4 on UAD, just about. Wait a minute, what's going on here? Why is this one not going? A whole lot of nothing happening on that waves until you get to 5. Interesting. Did you see that? Let me do it one more time. So here's turn off the UAD. We're at 60 hertz. We're at sharp. Slightly. Very slight. Now we start to see it. How far do we go? Okay, let me just go all the way to the top. Turn the UAD transfer function back on. Go all the way to the top. Once we're at the top, they kind of meet. But what happens here? What if I'm at 2.5 and I'm at 2.5 here? Pretty close. Okay, so let's choose our mid frequency to be, let's say 5K. And I'm going to do a boost on the waves. We'll say what looks to be, well, it's a little bit much. Looks to be 6 according to the number. Take the UAD, go to 6 according to the number. It's higher. 6, and the frequency center is not quite the same. So 6 on waves ends up being 4 3/4 on the UAD. A little hyped up on the UAD as far as the taper. Here I'm at 7. Keeps moving, keeps moving. Now it gets to be extreme. You see all that phase shift right there? What if I just go full boost? I go full boost. Not the same. So on red, the peak is at 5.06. And on blue, the peak is at 5.34. 300 hertz. Okay. Let's go 3 and 3. 4 and 4. There's 5 and 5. 8 and 8 again. 10. 10. There's 12K. 12K. 16K and 16K. So just like analog hardware, there's going to be some tolerance issues in there. Let's match them up at 5K. Actual 4 on waves. Hair over 3. And take our bandwidth and start to move it up a bit. Flattens out. That seems to track. That's good. Let's go attenuate. So attenuating at 5K and boosting at 5K. What looks to be, I'll say 5. And what looks to be, I'll say, too far. And what is 5 on waves? Not quite the same. Again, UAD is a little bit more hyped. So to match the UAD, I have to go 5.5. Interesting. Let's take out the UAD version here, and let's put in the standard Pro Tools version. Okay, so we're back in. Now the standard Pro Tools version is in on red, and you see there is some phase shift on the bottom, but not at the top. So maybe they're trying to model a transformer down the bottom. Who knows? Let's see where the level is. Level is more true on the standard Pro Tools version. So let me back the gain down on this guy, which is the waves version. I think it's 0.5 dB. Really close, 0.6. And there. Let's see what happens when we go a full boost at 60 hertz on the waves and a full boost at 60 hertz. Not quite the same. Not quite enough. Well, we'll match it up. What does 30 hertz do? Standard one is just not quite as hyped as the waves, which would mean it would be way less hyped than the UAD version. Let's go to 100. Standard one is just not quite enough. Doesn't have as much gas. Let's go back to no boost. We'll keep it at 100 hertz. We'll go 5 attenuate on waves. Interesting. The boost doesn't have the same kind of gas, but the attenuate has more gas to it. Well, that's a 5 attenuate on waves and a 4.5 on the standard Avid. Switch them both to 60. Kind of holds true, a little bit less cut. Let's go 30. That holds. And then we'll look at 20. Interesting. All right, so we'll take the attenuation out. We'll look at the mid-range now. So if I go a 5 boost on standard Pro Tools at 5K, kind of match up the bandwidths. Let's see, bandwidth, let's see, sharp on both of them. Not even close. Look at those bandwidths. So this defaulted to, oh, wow. All right, what happens? Let's just use the waves as a starter. So in order to match these two settings up, at 5K, it's a setting of a 5 on waves, it's a setting of a 4 on Avid. Bandwidth is sharp, bandwidth is not sharp. It's halfway up on the Avid version. When I sharpen that, it becomes really sharp. Like I'm not even gonna be able to match it unless I go really big boost. Really big boost. They start to match each other there. That matched. So tolerances in the potentiometers. Let's just go to 10K on the Avid. Look at 10K here. Yeah, that's the bandwidth. It's just not quite right. Widen this guy out just a little bit. Increase the boost. Not possible. And let's look at the high frequency attenuation for at 10K and 10K. Take the waves to match up. At 5.4 is now matching the 4.7-ish. If I go full attenuation at 5K on the Avid, full attenuation at 5K on the waves, not quite the same. So long story short on this, you're not going to be able to use visual representation of what the knobs are doing to transfer settings across. You're going to have to listen to these things. Very wide. One of the reasons people use this is for the harmonic that it introduces. Let's just look at some of the waves presets real quick. You can get an idea of how people use this EQ. It's very broad. There's a kick 101, overhead EQ, boomy rooms, rock bass, yeah, 3.2, sub bass, Dean vocal, pretty strings, boost way up top, clear string plucks, reed strings, focused shaker, lane track warmer. What happens here if I bypass this? A little bit of gain. Gain always wins. Okay. PA Air Master. Starts to attenuate a little bit around 4K, 5K, 6K, 8K. Then there's a boost up top at 16. Interesting. Nick Brophy Mix Bus. Attenuates its high frequency a little bit. This is something I want to bring up on this very end of this video here. There's a couple settings in another black box type plugin, the CLA Mixdown. So with it pulled up here, we see I've just bypassed these things in here, kicked them out. You see its latency is 0, which is good. Turn the bass on. Even at 0, you get a slight boost. But look what happens when I go full 10. Matches that. The phase doesn't match. But remember, in blue here is the Pultec. There's a boost at 60. Right? If I bypass the Pultec, it goes back to 0. There it is. Let me pull up the next preset here that I did last night. And I'm going to turn off the boost here and reset it and turn on the treble. At full boost, drops right in line. This curve was a little bit more interesting. I had to boost at 3K, but also had to attenuate at 100 in order to get the lower side of the boost to contour in there. But definitely doable. Interesting, huh? Now, why do you think CLA would boost around 3.2, 3-ish? Equal loudness curve, Fletcher Munson. He's trying to get stuff louder on small speakers. Where are our human ears most sensitive? 3.5. I think I heard something years ago, I think it was in a manual. Don't quote me on the exact numbers, but I think it said plus 6 dB at 3.5 makes the entire mix sound 3 dB louder, something like that, which, yeah, could be because we're, as humans, most sensitive to that frequency range. So this was a side note. If you made it to the end of the video to see this, good for you. Otherwise, I'll keep doing this, and I've, of course, got other things coming up down the pipeline, so stay tuned to all that. Some front of house mixing, some system engineering, some IEM mixing ideas. So until next time.